From Calvary Church of Santa Ana, this is the Calvary Life Podcast, the show where we share stories, laugh together, and have discussions about faith, life, and God with people from Calvary Church. Here's your host, Eric Wakeling.
All right, welcome to the Calvary Life Podcast. We're so happy to have you listening, watching with us. And today we're excited to have Juan Yu with us. Juan, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you so much. It's an honor to be here.
Yes,
Eric.
So grateful to have you. Now, you and your family have been, how long have you been going to Calvary? What's some of your kind of Calvary origin story?
Yeah, it's been about 12 years since we've been here. Before that, we kind of got to know Calvary because of a Calvary Christian school.
Right.
So when Ben was a preschool student, I mean, he basically started at Calvary, and then now obviously he's at Biola. But so we were at another church in Anaheim, but we. Through different circumstances, Lord has led us to kind of look for another church, and then Calvary basically came into the selection. And
kids help with that, right? Sometimes,
that's right.
They make the decision for you.
Yeah, I mean, Shannon has been searching for different schools in different areas in terms of Christian schools, but Shannon just insists coming here, and then this has been the beginning.
Oh, that's great. Well, we love your family, and I know like my oldest daughter and your oldest daughter, definitely connected, and so it's so cool. And grateful for your family to be here. But now you are specifically, we'll talk about a couple things today, and even just so people know, we're going to talk about that Juan is a doctor, and we're going to talk about kind of coronavirus season and what that's been like. But also, you have a son with some like significant special needs, and we want to like really be able to talk about some of that. And I'll let you describe everything and all that when we get there. But just these are a couple things like I want us to address today, and I think it's going to be a rich sort of real life kind of conversation, right?
Right.
And so what kind of doctor are you?
Yeah, so I'm a gastroenterologist. It's a fancy name for a stomach specialist. So I basically specialize in stomach and colon and pancreas and liver, that kind of digestive system. All right.
So is that, so people are coming to you for all sorts of reasons?
Yeah, any kind of a stomach issues, ailment, they just come in. Usually patients come in mostly for colonoscopies and routine screening colonoscopies, but other issues as well.
Okay. Right. And you have your own private practice now, right?
Yes.
Okay. And so did you used to work for like a larger sort of company, hospital company, or how's that work?
Right. Yeah. So ever since I finished the fellowship training, this was the first job basically. It was a private practice that I joined in the beginning, and so I've been doing this for about 14, 15 years now. Yeah.
Okay. So is that for you? Do you have to be an entrepreneur, like a businessman and doctor, or how's that? Like, do you have to sort of rustle up your own business? How does that work?
In medical school, they don't teach you anything about economics or business aspects, so I had no idea what to expect. But it's been definitely a part, that's been very difficult to manage. But somehow just the Lord just blessed us to do the job that I need to do, and so there have been some great help along the way as well. So we've been very blessed.
Okay, good. Yeah. All right. Well, stomachs and colons. I mean, that's kind of sounds like messy work, possibly. I don't know.
Right.
Yeah. But so grateful for, as a guy in my upper 40s, I'm grateful for doctors like you. But it's important. And this has been an interesting time. Like, I know you're not like working like an ER or something, right? So when we think about coronavirus, but how has COVID-19 sort of impacted you, or what have you seen in your practice? Yeah,
so about 1/3 of my private practice is spent in the hospital setting. So I do round in the hospital pretty much every day, and then a lot of weekends as well. We could go down to emergency room, ICU, and everywhere that COVID patients may be. Obviously, we are not really considered the quote-unquote first responder in terms of ICU doctors or ER physicians. They definitely take much of a shares in terms of taking care of our COVID COVID patients. But, we do get consults. So we do go see the patients who need for example, feeding tube, or if the COVID patients end up having a lot of bleeding issues, we go in and then do the procedures. So those are the times that we actually end up going in and then taking care of those patients.
Okay. Wow. Yeah. Wow. Yeah, that's true. We have another mutual friend who's a doctor, who's a cardiologist, Tim, but because he's even feeling like, it seems like as a cardiologist, maybe you're not getting impacted, but it's almost like this ripple effect of, right? Like the way other departments are impacted. And so then your department is impacted.
Correct. Yeah. It's not just the inpatient setting, but as an outpatient setting too, because, when patients come into the office, we don't know who actually were exposed. And then if they are positive or not, we don't really screen for anybody, for all the patients. So we always have to be, guarding up. And, that's been one of the most difficult part. I mean, we physicians, we are trained to be with the patients, touch them and hug them and talk very closely, and then we examine them. But those things have been hindered because of the coronavirus. So just like everybody else, we definitely have been feeling the effect.
Wow. Yeah. Okay. So I think it's a huge way that like COVID has like impacted all of us is kind of what you're talking about there is this, I guess it's like intimacy, right? Like that we try to, I mean, even what we're doing right now, we're recording this and we have this sort of setup where we're trying to be as good as we can. And we're probably like not perfect, but we're trying to do it the best that we can. We're socially distanced in a podcast way. Normally we'd be like right next to each other. And, but then even like my job as a pastor, like, I want to always be like coming alongside someone and like to hug them and put my arm around them and pray for them. And sometimes I remember even in a service where I'm praying with someone and it's like, you can't hear that well because the music's going, but you're praying for somebody, and then like I'm putting my face like right up to their mouth and like that stuff we just like won't do. Right.
I know. It's been a challenge. Yeah.
Okay. So the whole like guard up, the whole like with all the stuff that you have to do, was that a challenge even for you and your practice just to be able to get all of that? Like all your PPE?
Yeah, right? So in the beginning, getting the PPE definitely has been the problem. So none of us actually expected it. So that there has been quite of a shortage. Fortunately, the hospital that I work at St. Joseph's, we did have a pretty decent stockpile along the way as well. So even with a peak admission time, we were able to manage without much difficulty. But that's been a challenge. Correct.
Okay. And so it was interesting. We were talking before, and I just want you to kind of unpack this. But you were even just feeling like that had some spiritual parallels for you.
Yeah, I mean, one day I was just, wearing all the PPEs. That includes all the gloves, of course, and then all the masks, which we already had. But an additional mask on top, we basically have to N95 plus the surgical mask on top of it with a face shield and all the hair.
It's like, can you even hear anything?
I know. So somehow, even wearing a mask affects the hearing, as you probably experienced too, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, so as I was guarding up before I saw the patient, it just suddenly dawned on me, saying, "Wow, maybe it's a similar parallel to Ephesians 6 when God talks about the armor of God." And so every morning I actually has become a routine for me. Just citing the helmet of salvation, breastplate of righteousness, and belt of truth, and gospel feet of the gospel, and shield of faith, and armor of spirit. I mean, so this is like unless I guard up spiritually, we will actually encounter all these attacks. So that actually has become the real thing for me. It's like just a tangible thing that it's just one thing. I guess it's a silver lining coming out from the COVID-19.
Yeah,
personally.
Yeah, because I would think as a medical doctor, you are putting yourself in. You're constantly putting yourself in harm's way, right? And so it's like, how do you gird yourself up with like even to not just be filled with fear all the time or anxiety for your own self or your family and all of that kind of stuff. So now you've got the face shield of courage or the gloves of righteousness,
something like that.
Yeah, I don't know what it is, but we gotta work on that. There's a book deal there, I think, or at least a sermon. That's cool. I like that, just to kind of think through how to think through these things like in a modern way of what these ancient, we're not putting on actual armor these days, but which is probably, it's like a little less relatable maybe to us of all of that. And then, you gave me your business card, and your business card, it's really cool on the bottom. Well, on this, you've got an anchor on the back, and on the bottom you have doulos, the healing ministry of Jesus Christ. After all the fancy words that I can't say on the top, no, just gastroenterology. So tell me about that, like.
Yeah, so, the healing ministry of Jesus Christ was not actually originally from me. It was actually in the back of my badge from the hospital, because I work at St. Joseph Hospital. I would kind of decided to kind of combine. I just like the word of doulos and, a bond servant, of course. But so I just felt like, not only Jesus is my Savior and my Father, and but He is basically my senior attending. I mean, he is the master, and then he's the boss. So in that sense, I just kind of wanted to dedicate my private practice to his direction. But of course, my intention was that, but doing it on a day-to-day basis has been a very, very much of a struggle, but and then challenge too. But it's like having a bumper sticker, I think, in the back of your car, and then once you have a bumper sticker, you better drive carefully. But
that's right.
But I'm not really a good driver, so I don't actually have a bumper sticker on the back.
Me either.
But it just helps me kind of remind myself as to what kind of a doctor I should be.
Do you ever have patients or vendors or people like talk about it?
Actually, there are some patients who mention that, and then what does that mean, and what does that mean to you? So, but interesting, there was a patient just recently. When I mail out my business card to the patient, they look at it, and then they called us before the appointment saying that they don't feel comfortable coming to me because she has sexual orientation that's not traditional, and she said that all the Christians that I encountered were very judgmental. I don't want to be in the practice like that. So the staff told me about that. So and then staff, I answered it properly. Said no, Dr. Yu is not like that. You're welcome to be here. And so I spent the extra time when I saw her in the office to explain, her illness and all that stuff, and she was very happy. So I think it can be, there people do have a preconception about the Christianity. So I as much as I can, I try to kind of clarify the whole ministry as well.
I love that, where you can just say, "No, we love you," right? Yeah, I want to share with you. I would want to share with you the love of Christ, but I'm also just here to do my job well.
Correct,
right?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. That's right.
That's really great. I learned about, and I don't know how much, if you don't know about some of this stuff, I'm sorry, but I learned about this thing when I was in Turkey and studying Roman Empire, kind of like first century medicine. They were talking about this, and they were showing us these places called the Asclepion, which was the temple of Asclepius, which was the god of healing.
Oh, I see.
But within the way it worked was within this one that we were in. I forget exactly what town it was, but it was in the west coast of Turkey. And they said in this place, they actually had the best doctors of that day were there. And so they're working on you. But to be able to go have those doctors work on you, you had to go make an offering to Asclepius.
Wow.
And so to bow down, to make an offering to this idol, this false god. And so that was this big thing of first century, for the Christians of so if you want to, part of even why they were bonded together, kind of that communal thing was because to even go to the doctor, you had to worship a false god, So it was you think about how that's ingrained in their culture, and we get worried about the things we're worried about today of, laws or whatever.
Yeah.
But I just thought that was a super interesting thing. And I don't know if that's how that would strike you as someone that would have to make that kind of, and I'm sure you're sort of faced with having to make decisions of what am I going to stand for or not stand for, or allow or not allow in this field.
Yeah. I mean, as a, disciple of Jesus Christ, of course, we are called to love everybody. So it really doesn't matter what their their
Right.
prejudices.
No, absolutely.
But it is challenging in this world. I mean, as you know, America has become post-Christianity country at this time, and a lot of people have a different preconceptions. And I'm not here to correct everybody's judgment, of course, but then I am trying to do my job. But sometimes that can be a challenge.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so let's move on to just talking a little bit more about your family. And so I'd love if you could tell me a little bit about your son and how you and your wife Shannon, and just kind of like, what was the journey like of even when you first sort of like, what was it like? How did you first find out? What are the struggles or whatever? Just how God has made him,
Yeah.
What's the story there?
Yeah, so Jeremy is our third child, our second son, and he is now 15. And so when he was first born, he actually had a pretty good APGAR score. When the baby comes out, they get
What's that mean?
APGAR score is just a 10 is a good score. He actually scored 10 out of 10. So we thought that it's a healthy baby.
But what's that measuring? Like, what do you mean? I don't remember that.
Oh yeah, so they look at the how the babies cry and the skin turgor and all that stuff, and so everything came back fine.
Okay.
And then he passed the hearing test and all that. But as he was growing up into 6 months to 8 months period, he really didn't reach the landmark as most of the kids would be. And then he kind of has a big head. So we just thought that, he may have a difficulty sitting up because his head is so heavy.
Okay, yeah.
He's going to be probably a very smart guy.
Right. Like when they're a baby and they're like,
right.
I know what you're talking about. Yeah.
But he couldn't even walk until 18 months. So that's when we were kind of concerned, and we asked the pediatrician, and then he said, he could be something a little bit developmental delay, but I'm not quite sure. But around the same time, he started having seizures. So most of the babies, when they start having seizures, we think of a febrile seizure that usually gets better after a year or two. But he kept on having seizures. So he ended up having to go through the MRI, EEG. We saw a neurologist. And we just put him on an anti-seizure medication. And so he basically had a kind of developmental delay. And then the diagnosis at that time was epilepsy with a recurrent seizure, and then autistic feature because he kept on clapping the hand. Okay. So, we just thought positively. I mean, maybe he'll outgrow it. He's a little bit slow, but so what, right? Usually after 5 years or so, kids will outgrow the seizure. So we were hoping that would be the case, but he kept on having seizures, whenever he has some fever or a little bit of a viral illness. So that really concerned us. So that's when we started discussing with a neurologist, and he started having the behavioral therapy to kind of help in terms of the growth. So the bottom line at this time is that so we actually had a genetic testing finally, and it came back that he was missing a couple of genes. So there is a rare condition, and that's been shared throughout the world. But these kids basically have a very delayed developmental stage, and he's not quite verbal. So he can say a few words, but he always says "aga" means in Korean, "let's go outside," or "mama," or just food. Yeah. So it's very easy things, right? So. But
I like that he's got the Korean down.
Right, I know. I know. Yeah, so he probably has a mental stage of, depending on which aspect, anywhere between 1 and maybe 2 or so still. And
he's 50. You said he's 15 now.
Yeah, he's 15. Yeah. Right. So that's been, in the beginning, it's been kind of a challenge in terms of, mainly not because of, how he is affecting us personally, but, how he can be growing. So what kind of things that he can do as an adult. And so that's been kind of up in the air. So that was the most kind of a frustrating part, usually. But So
when you say that, do you mean like kind of like what his future can be, like even like independence or that kind of stuff?
Right. Yeah. So we were hoping that if he can work at a convenience store, and, do backpack and pack the groceries or something simple.
Yeah.
He can kind of manage the regular life.
Yes.
So, but then, the way he's progressing, we are not quite sure with what the end is going to be. And that's one of the things that we just left everything to the Lord. I mean, there's nothing that, and we tried the different therapies and intensive things also, but then that doesn't really seem to kind of help accelerating the process necessarily. But we just, from the early day on, Shannon and I both decided to kind of just love him as he is. I mean, God gave us Jeremy for a reason, right? And then that's why we were, one of the reasons that we chose Calvary, of course, is that the staff was so welcoming to have Jeremy, and some of you who might have saw Jeremy, I mean, he's just a happy guy. He's just smiling and hugging, trying to hug everybody and stuff. So I'm just so appreciative of Calvary staff and volunteers in terms of taking care of him, and he has grown. I mean, we can definitely tell spiritually, emotionally, he has grown quite a bit. It's just not that he's not able to verbalize things and process things as quickly as we would like it to.
Right. Okay. So within that, let's go back a little bit to the beginning,
right?
Because I think people get to where you are now, and it didn't mean it took till now to get there. Of like your mindset and just that love, and of course you love your kid no matter what.
Right.
But they're also like, how do you process? It sounded like it was almost like the news was coming kind of like in steps. It wasn't just like this boom diagnosis on you or something like right when he was born, but so it seemed like you had like almost like stages to adjust or something. But like, how does one sort of process that to get to the healthy place that you were with the Lord and with whatever?
Yeah, I to be honest, I think the actual fundamental aspect of living up to the Lord was kind of a stuff from the get-go, from the start.
Okay.
The actual day-to-day businesses, in terms of taking care of them, that part was somewhat challenging. But to me, actually, I was more into this, doctor thing, right? At work, and and I come home tired, and but most of the day-to-day things were basically handled by Shannon, as well as my mother-in-law who lives with us. I'm so appreciative of her taking care of him. But in terms of the struggle, obviously, Shannon and my mother-in-law has had to go through all that difficult times and challenges. But all in all, I mean, we are all in the same page. I mean, ever since day one, we just like so blessed to have him. It's just like an extra thing. It's like I guess the best way to describe him is like a bundle of joy, right?
Totally. I agree.
Yeah, so it's and then because of him, it's just our other kids have been a lot more loving, caring, and otherwise they probably would have been a lot more selfish.
Right. You're right.
And all but then it's just like I know a lot of parents of the special needs kids will say that you never change this condition for anything else.
Right.
But I think that there is definitely truth to that, so that we can definitely attest to that. But in terms of your question about challenges and steps and progressing the growth, I think it's definitely a process. I don't think it comes just one day thing.
Right. Because it's like it seems like it's a hard thing as a parent, because I know everything's hard, right? Of course, but just all parenting's hard too. But there's challenges, and it sounds like Jeremy was born like right when you were opening your practice too, right? So it's just like having kids at all in that season of life was probably crazy. And, just babies in general. But then I don't know. I just think like sometimes I wonder if we think it's like not okay to struggle, and it's not that you're ever disappointed or upset or something, but it's just that I just don't know how much people feel the pressure maybe in your shoes to just be like, no, this is all great. To have this like super positive outlook, but like probably my hunch is that it is all great, but there's days that you're really just like down and struggle, right?
Yeah. I mean, I can remember just, coming out of one day the St. Joseph Hospital, chalk ER. I was just, so Shannon was driving another car because we had to come separately. I had to come, there was he suddenly had a seizure activity. So I just came out of the office and then just saw him there. And then I was just holding him and just crying out to the Lord. I mean, I was just like, Lord, just do something, just heal him, or, just do something, or at least let me know what the future holds. I mean, how long is it gonna last? And that has been that was the outcry that I had at that time. But there are different moments like that. I mean, I'm sure appreciate your question, but I mean, I do feel that from time to time, and as I said, the most up in the air question is when we die, right? When Shannon and I, I don't know how many years our Lord has as us, but after we die, and then our kids will hopefully take care of Jeremy. But what's going to happen to him? I mean, we don't want to put him into the adult care center, and then just being alone. And those are the questions we are kind of asking ourselves and trying to prepare ourselves as well.
Absolutely. No, that makes a lot of sense. And that even helps, like, even people listening know how to pray for you guys and just to care for you in that. But I just felt like I want people to know, like, and even if anybody's listening to this and they kind of just, I don't know, if somebody just kind of looked this up and wondered, like, maybe they're facing this kind of, the beginnings of these moments of diagnoses or noticing things. And it's like, okay, Lord, how do I be real with you, God, about how I'm feeling? But also, like, of course, I just deeply love and care for my child, and no matter what, and like, and yes, there's these like beautiful gifts of his joy and all of these things, but like at the same time, I know I need to get there, right? Like, so sometimes even in my own life, like I have certain things where it's like something comes up and I know like my attitude should be right, it should be, and it will be to like, okay, like gratitude or whatever, but like, okay, help me get there honestly as well, and not just kind of try to put something on that I know I'm supposed to do. And I think it's okay for that, for you, and it's okay for people to like have that. Maybe take just a little time while giving of yourself. How do you think you are a different man because of Jeremy? Like, how does that change your heart?
I think each kid has a different, blessing in terms of giving us the opportunity to grow. And Ben, for example, has a great gift of intellect, and he helps me learn how to serve the Lord, know the Lord properly.
Ben's a good example for me too. I need to be more like Ben.
And then Betsy, obviously, is she has an artsy character, and then she's very creative. And then I learned about the about the creative part of the Lord. And Becky has a very joyful and just a fun way. But Jeremy just helps me be a person to kind of slow down a little bit. I being a physician, and I'm being a private practice, just being on call every other day for the past 14, 15 years. To be honest, I get tired of it at times. I get exhausted. But Jeremy always drags me to go to the park, have a hike, and those times I really treasure. I wish I had more time when I was a little bit, earlier on in my career. I really feel bad about not having to spend a lot of time with the family in the beginning of my career. But I now kind of recognize it, and I try to change in that aspect. So Jeremy definitely has made me grow to slow down and just listen to the Lord. And then, because otherwise I just keep doing the same thing and the same mistakes over and over again. So he, in that aspect, he is a great teacher to me.
That's so cool. Wow, I love that so much. Now, like, when did for you some of that journey you guys were on, you and Shannon, kind of turned into a bit of a passion to start a bit of a ministry that you guys had done for a while.
Yeah.
Right? Will you tell us a little bit about that?
So it's called a Touch of Guidance for siblings of special needs children. So it's a long title, but we just happened to encounter a news article, I believe, that Shannon read, and saying that the siblings of special needs kids tend to have a lower academic performance levels, less of a graduation level from high school, and then not as much. Not many kids are going to college and all that stuff. So I'm kind of wondering, so what could that be? And one of the theses on that paper was that because all the families are, not all families are as resourceful as we are.
Right.
But, a lot of families with special needs, they, basically live in a day-to-day, paycheck to paycheck, some, welfare. They don't really have the resources to take care of the siblings. I mean, not to mention that, they're just focused on the special needs child, right?
Yeah,
it's a Down syndrome and autism, all that special needs. When they are focused on that special child, then the siblings suffer, basically. So it kind of hurt in our heart, and so we really have to step up and then stand in the gap there. So because Shannon and I both have experience with being a tutor when you were in college and graduate school. So we thought, and then Betsy was doing the art stuff, and then we had the art teacher who had a heart in, who is an OSHA teacher. She had a heart in taking, helping us too. So we were kind of combining academic aspect as well as the art aspect to kind of teach these siblings of special needs to, and then at the same time give, the attention to the special needs child, attention to the parents themselves, right? And then, so these kids, we were hoping to kind of raise them up as especially the kids who really don't have the resources to private tutoring and all that stuff. So that was our initial original intention for forming the nonprofit.
Yeah. How did that impact Ben, Betsy, Becky, to like even the fact that you wanted to start something like that? Did you feel like they? I mean, sometimes I do things my kids could care less, right? But like,
beautiful children,
But at the same time, you're starting a ministry because you're noticing them,
right?
Do you think that sort of impacted them in a way?
Oh yeah, definitely, because when we were doing the special needs ministry, Ben and Betsy, they were kind of actively involved in terms of forming the program and scheduling and flyers and all that stuff. So it was they were definitely actively involved. Their heart was all in it too. And during one summer, we actually did a leadership training over in the Big Bear. So I took all those potential tutor kids up in the Big Bear, and then did 3 nights spiritual training.
Oh, nice! That's cool.
Yeah, so it was just a highlight of the thing. But afterwards we kind of I realized that the nonprofit organizations require a lot of maintenance as well as administration.
Yeah.
So we kind of changed that to a foundation at this time. So,
okay. But that's good. That's amazing. And I think one thing I think is interesting, just even for people in general that might be listening to this, is like, so you have you have something going on in your life that you could have said that should make us only focus on ourselves, right? Like, but you chose to have, I think, a more, I guess I would call a more generous perspective that was to say, like, we're not just going to focus on our own family, we're also going to care about other families. But you might, because I think people would say you had the right to just say, no, we're only going to focus on ourselves, we got a lot to deal with here, right? Like,
I think that actually came naturally. I mean, before we came to Calvary, we were involved in a Korean congregation in Anaheim for 7 years. We did a lot of serving in ministry and did alpha teaching and all that stuff. But then we kind of burnt out there was kind of more of a work than spiritual joy. But when we came here, Shannon and I were just fed with the word, and we kind of grew spiritually, and we went to Doc Sorensen class and we learned tons also.
Cool. Yeah, that's right.
So and we were doing like Hosea at that time Bible study, and then I think it was all combination. I think the Lord was kind of preparing our heart for such a time as that. I think so we just couldn't just sit alone. So I think it was more of an outgrowth of the other heart. So that we just happened to be Shannon and I both have this passion because we could take care of Jeremy and we could try to spend more time and all that stuff. But Jeremy is Jeremy, right? So God is gonna deal with him, in the right time. But in the meantime, what are you gonna do with all these siblings who are lost? Right?
So. Exactly. That's cool. And I think sometimes when you turn something could be just focused on self, or could be just considered this is hard work. This is a hard moment. We got to be, focusing here. But you turn it sort of externally focused. I think sometimes it can even help you to have just good perspective even in the home, or whatever.
Right. Yeah,
and so I just think that's an encouragement to people. Don't just sort of sit in your thing, whatever people's have, whatever challenge or new situation or something in your life that's different or harder or whatever. Right. Don't just woe is me, you know? Right. And to be able to still be able to serve out of that and see how God can use it.
I think so. I think that's the best antidote for sure.
That's cool. Yeah. So on this podcast, we had Melissa on last week, Melissa Broche, who heads up our Bridge ministry it's our disability ministry, or for folks with special needs.
Right.
How has that ministry served you guys, and maybe how have you been able to see, and be involved with that as well?
Yeah, I mean, the ministry definitely has helped us. I mean, to be able to focus on the service. I mean, if it was not for ministry, then Shannon and I probably wouldn't have been able to come to church. I mean, to begin with. I mean, there are so many families.
How's it work? What happens? What do they do for you?
Oh yeah. So I mean, they took care of Jeremy, right? The moment we bring Jeremy in, I mean, he is like a VIP, right?
Yeah.
It's everybody, all the volunteers are so anxious to. Because I'm so sorry about the volunteers at this time. I just want to borrow this opportunity to tell them, because we've been kind of late to church because and then they have been patiently waiting for us until Jeremy arrives, right? And then they would just take him and then just play with him, just go and walk around the campus, the church campus, and just play the games, and then read the books and all these things. It's just an amazing spiritual time with him. And in the meantime, we can focus on our time to worship and Bible study and then all the spiritual growth. And so I think it's such a great ministry. And then we attended disability ministry before we actually did a Touch of Guidance camp thing. So we got a lot of ideas from the ministry as well. So they helped us helping others as well. Yeah, so it's been the leadership of Melissa Broche and all the people is just amazing.
Yeah, that's so great. Yeah, and I love just even sometimes when I'm just kind of walking around campus checking on different ministries, and you'd be like, "Oh, there's Jeremy. What's up?" Cruising around with somebody.
Yeah, that's right.
And it's you're right. You just get a huge smile.
Right.
No matter what.
Right.
So that's really cool. So it's so great that your family has been able to both, and I think that's something beautiful, in the kind of a church setting, is that you're able to both receive, love and care and service, but then you're able to give love and care and service to others. It's this mutual and because sometimes even we can get well, no, I don't need to be served, to accept being served can be hard, right?
Right. I know. I feel, just a lot of times I feel bad, but then Shannon always reminds me, don't feel bad. I mean, these are the opportunities that they can be blessed by just taking care of Jeremy. And so whenever I think about it, that's true. That is true.
That is true. And you are blessed with a pretty incredible wife. She is.
Oh yeah. I'm so blessed.
Incredibly smart, wise, and also one of the most outgoing, vivacious people I've ever met.
That's right. Full of energy always.
That's awesome.
Right.
That's awesome. You. And you see that in your kids.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, so maybe just kind of a last question here of just how do you think, maybe for people that would be listening to this and they're not impacted on an everyday basis by special needs or a kid with a disability or their own, any of that kind of stuff, But how can you think they can sort of open their hearts to people and families with special needs? Is there a way that people can kind of just, what are some ways people like kind of need to grow, or people can kind of open up to this if they feel, because I think sometimes people are like nervous, or they're, or they don't know how to act or what to say or the right words to use, or, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I think that's a very good question. I mean, obviously before Jeremy, I was like that, right? So I didn't really know how to deal with other people of my age, and it's, what we call funny looking kids, and I don't know what to say, right?
Right.
But I mean, it all comes down to the basic, right? It's just a heart issue, right? So I don't know if it's a right parallel or not, but just 2 days ago, I had a patient who just lost the wife, and about a few weeks ago, he says that all the friends that he used to hang around, they just said, just get over it and forget about it, and you'll be okay, and she's in heaven, and
better place.
Why do you cry, and that kind of a thing. But the one person that he said that was the most helpful was that just cry out to the Lord, just cry out, go to the beach and just yell, and that was the best advice that he received. When he told me that, it's not as of that kind of intensity necessarily, but then if someone who is not familiar with the special needs kids, if they can just come and say hi, like a big smile, and when Jeremy walks around, don't just avoid them, in the COVID situation, it's kind of hard to touch him or hug him, but just say hi. And then, that kind of a willing heart, I think, goes a long way. And you don't really have to know what to say or what to act. It's just it's a spiritual thing, right? It's a spirit of the person who just believes that all creative human beings are equal. I mean, we're all made in God's image. So once you believe that, you act out, and you'll be fine. I think, So that's before Jeremy, as I said, I didn't know what to do either. Yeah.
And I think that's kind of what you're saying, though, is like you don't know what to do, and you don't need to know what to do.
Correct.
But just act like you normally would.
Right.
Just smile and say hi and engage, and then take it from there, and it's going to be okay.
That's right.
That's good. I think that's a great first step for people, is just to like engage beyond your level of awkwardness or uncomfortability. Right. Yeah. That's so good.
That's well put.
Well, good. And I'm just super grateful for you and your family, and just cool. Like part of this podcast, like what we call it, Calvary Life Podcast, is just to hear the life of people like in our church, and there's some really like interesting stories that we've heard from you today, and ways that we can all, as we learn, can just be able to grow from that. So thank you for being willing to share your story.
Thank you so much, Eric, for coming.
You got it. And thank you to all of you for listening to the Calvary Life Podcast.